if news happens and I'm not reading it, is it still actually happening? This is the Soft Revolution podcast. My name is Torquil Campbell.
I'm Ali Moment.
Thank you for joining us again, guys. We hope you're having a beautiful summer wherever you are. We hope it's lovely and you're having a lovely time and spending time outside. And we hope that your tomatoes are growing if you're a tomato growing kind of person. And we hope your show's going well. If you're in some show, God help you, but we hope it's going well. And yeah, this is it, the height of summer. It feels extremely gorgeous where I am in Vancouver. Ali, how are you? I have to admit something to you as we
Yeah.
begin this show this week. Um, I've been a bad podcaster. I have
Mm.
not been reading the news. And this makes it very difficult for me, of course, to intelligently speak about the things that we're supposed to speak about on
That
this
hasn't
podcast.
stopped you before. I
No,
know
and
it's not
well,
gonna.
neither a lack of intelligence nor ignorance have ever stopped me from expressing my two-bit opinion. That's what this is all about. But I'm particularly unqualified this week. But I just, um, it's summer, and I've been very busy, and I've been spending beautiful time with family and with loved ones, and
hmm
that's awesome. I've
hmm
been in places where it just hasn't occurred to me to sit with the news a lot. But even now that I'm back at home, I find myself, and I'm wondering how other people out there feel, um, really, really, really driven away from informing myself by reading newspapers, websites, etc. And the
hmm
reason is, of course, that there is relentless and terrible news about all kinds of things. Thus has it ever been. Just so
hmm
everyone remembers, in case you're thinking of pre-COVID as a kind of golden halcyon days of there being nothing wrong in the world. This is not an accurate memory. It may feel like that, but it wasn't like that. There's always been terrible news. But I do think something's different post COVID. And I think what's different is that the way that people are producing news and the way that we are consuming news has gotten even more intensely reliant on the digital,
hmm
on social media as a news source. And because of this, um, news, i.e., journalism, has changed. The way the news is delivered to us, the packages in which it's delivered, the packaging around it has become ever more shiny and hysterical and crazy.
hmm
And I think that there is deep, profound danger in people such as myself who are news junkies, who are people who like to know what's going on in the world, who feel like they want to know who's getting screwed over and who's doing it, and all those incredibly important things that journalism does.
hmm
Reveals the bully, reveals the con, holds politicians to account, holds public servants to account, makes us aware of great stuff that's happening in the community, all those wonderful things that journalism does. I am not um, I am not being a part of, I'm not exposing myself to, because I am so beaten down by the package in which it has got to arrive now.
hmm
And the danger, of course, is that we have a population who don't know what's happening,
hmm
who turn off, who just simply turn off. And if whether it's COVID or it's the climate emergency or it's any number of things, affordability, I think, is the world's biggest problem right now, or at least it's the biggest problem in this part of the world. Um, whether it's any of those things, um, we face the prospect that people see news the way I have been seeing it for the last 10 days, which is as a series of just relentless hysteria screamed out over scrolls of social media with no context, no sense of perspective, no calmness, no attempt to nuance anything. And this, of course, is not true. There are many journalists out there trying to do that work and writing those pieces and doing that stuff. But that's not what we're seeing.
hmm
And to wit, an example of this is an article from the beloved New York Times that came out today, which fascinatingly was up on the front page for 5 hours and then removed. pretty certain that's because the response to it was unanimously negative. And it's called Sorry Summer. We all know what happened with summer 2020. Then 2021 was dampened by Delta. This year, any anticipated return to revelry has been hampered by waves hand at everything. Is there hope for enjoying the once fun season? So we have Timothy Hale, 29-year-old hairstylist, who says he can't enjoy parties because of monkeypox, and we have we have another person who's 30 who feels that she can't, 25, Sarah Molina, she can't have a hot girl summer because it's too hot outside and because Roe v. Wade was overturned. And we can't, L'Oreal Nidospial, 37, starting to notice a theme here, people? Hello, millennials. You complain too much. Becca Neer, who works in the St. Louis Zoo, they can't go out because they think that their children are going to get shot at the pool and COVID is still scary. Reginald Aja, 34, feels he can't travel because it's too. There's a guy complaining because they're gonna ban vaping, okay? And all these people, they have their complaints and they're sitting on Twitter and they have 150 followers. And this journalist from the New York Times, and I know this to be true, Ali, because I went and looked. The way this woman wrote this article was by sitting on Twitter, finding people complaining about their summer, and then went to the editor of the New York Times, and they were like, yeah, we'll give you 4,000 words for that.
Absolutely
bullshit. Can we wake up? This is not, look, everybody's been doing hate reads in the New York Times. That's part of the fun. You get your coffee and your croissant, you sit in a cafe somewhere and you read an annoying article in the New York Style. It's in the fucking style section. But these things don't go away. They're not fish and chip paper the next day the way they used to be. And I really think we are missing the crucial importance of that difference. That when you put something on paper, which people then recycle in their garbage bin, that's how much attention it deserves. That's how much intelligence it deserves. No, this thing's lasting. This thing's sitting here now defining the conversation along with so much other relentless negativity and doom scrolling and doom-laden talk. Today, the WHO declared a global emergency of monkeypox. Now, I am not a physician. I think the people at the WHO probably know what they're talking about. I happen to have gone and looked at the list of things that they've declared global emergencies over the years. There's about 25, 30 things over the last 20 years that they've declared global emergencies, all serious things, including many Ebola outbreaks that we never knew about. But when you scream it in the way the world's media are screaming it, you take it completely out of the context in which they are declaring it. So that's where I'm at. I'm ignorant, Ali, and I'm wondering, like, how do you think... You know, because you are in many ways, what's so great about talking to you every week is that you do stay engaged, and sometimes you're furious and you write me furious emails, and your head's going to explode.
That's a persona I show no one else.
But you do stay engaged. What do you suggest for people who have this fatigue? Like, how do we look at news without looking at the headlines? I guess it's really the question.
Right. Well, I just first want to say that it really seems like it's the journalists who aren't out in the real world, talking actually to normal people. They're online, and the truth is, like, just walk the streets, go to restaurants, go to concerts. People are having great times. People are falling in love. People are getting together. You know, when I read this, though, to your point, there's contagion in this way of thinking.
Yeah, that's my worry.
That's the issue. There really definitely is contagion. You know, we are in a crisis of health, a crisis particularly of physical health. Even just the way we talk about, like, COVID and stuff. We have all these long conversations, but I hear nobody talking about nutrition, about exercise, about sleep, about what your brain can do to your body. And that when you are depressed and when you are sad, you are going to feel like shit.
Yeah,
nothing.
I mean, this is
no
the
conversation
big thing. This
at
is
all.
The big
no
thing.
Conversation at all.
And it's the... And
no conversation.
I think it weakens us in the fight is the scary thing to me. Yeah. Because, my God, there are massive problems to tackle. And they're not all far away, and they're not all distant things that don't affect us. There are many things that are affecting us, that are affecting
that
our
we're not
healthcare
paying
system,
attention
that are
to, you know,
affecting
like,
our environment.
yeah, we're not
We're
talking
paying
about
attention to them, but we're paying attention to them in a way of like, when my mother, God bless her, I love her. She's never going to hear this podcast because she doesn't have a computer. But when I would get sick as a kid, my mother was the type of mother who'd come in and be like, "Are you all right?
Yeah.
You look dreadful." You
Sure.
know what I mean? It's like, Ma, that's not like she was doom scrolling my flu.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
My mother was a doom scroller before doom scrolling was cool. And it doesn't prime you for the fight. And especially I think with climate, God, it's important to make people understand what the stakes are and just how bad the situation is. But if we offer them zero hope, what is the point in fighting? What is the point in changing your lifestyle?
No, there's no hope whatsoever. And to that individual who was like, "I'm scared to party because of monkeypox," my friend, if you're in America, the smallpox vaccine is available to everybody. Go get it.
Right.
Go get it.
Right. Right.
I'm not here to say that like, you should, we can 100% eliminate everything, the adverse effects of everything. But my friend, what are you doing? You are exhibiting cognitive dissonance, cognitive distortion after cognitive distortion is what is going on. 100%.
Yeah.
And it just kind of like really, really infuriates me. But we have a mental health crisis, right? And Sigmund Freud says like
that to me is the
that's
biggest
thing,
is
actually.
People,
and we're perpetuating
we are browbeating
that.
ourselves
We're making it worse.
into
We're making it worse. Sigmund Freud would say that what is it to be mentally healthy? Simple. To be able to love and to work. That's it. That's why, there's very, very much like what we like to talk about. Are people able to work? Do people have jobs as artists? And also, are people able to like connect and be with each other? This is not good for us. Being on Twitter and living your life through the lens of social media is inherently anti-human. It is a destructive thing. And it kind of just like closes your eyes to the beauty of the world that exists. And if you don't think the world is beautiful, it is not it doesn't have worth for you to try to even fucking fix it and do something about it. So go fucking.
Well, it brings me.
Yeah, people.
It brings my mind up to something that you actually, ironically, brought up on Twitter, but you were talking about the algorithm, as you often do, and it was an article in The Guardian, which recently came out, which said that an interior study, like I think a Twitter study of its own algorithm,
that it pushes the right wing 167% compared to the left wing, which we talk about.
Within Canada expresses the most difference. Well, see, now I was like, now that's interesting because, of course, echo chambers, right? Yeah. My Twitter feed looks like just the woke Olympics, everybody screaming about COVID all the time. But I thought, why? Okay, so why is that so? If Twitter is largely a platform, it seems to me, for liberals to exchange, hysterical yelling arguments at each other, why is there so much more right-wing stuff? And the answer, of course, is that what galvanizes, what incites, what upsets, what gets liberals goat is seeing right-wing postings. Yeah. So it's not that Twitter itself, the company, is a right-wing company. I'm sure 95% of the people who work at Twitter
the algorithm's
are
indifferent.
It's that the algorithm just promotes whatever's going to make you most upset.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
That's what's so crazy. It's not that there's more right-wing people tweeting. No. It's that those people's tweets are getting more feed by the algorithm because the algorithm can see that they upset you.
Well, what I want, and the thing is like who I quote tweeted.
Get upset.
What I want people to know, who I quote tweeted wasn't the Guardian article, because the Guardian article to me is like obvious. We talk about it all the time. I was quote tweeting actually Catherine McKenna, the former environmental minister of Canada, who basically was saying that regulate it, aka diminish, make it equal. And my argument was this. My argument was that I do not want Twitter, Facebook, Instagram choosing which speech they should be pushing. I don't want that. I don't trust them. We shouldn't have trusted them before. We should not trust them now. We should not trust them in the future. My view is I don't want anyone to pick a side. I want no sides. And this is something that is being espoused not just by people like me, but by people like Frances Haugen, the Facebook whistleblower, to be like, at the end of the day, turn the algorithm off. Turn it off.
Right.
Turn it off.
But you know what would happen then?
No, it's just
nobody would look at it.
Sure,
nobody would look at it.
Allow people to turn it back on, but give a disclaimer. And then the second thing that's important here is that This should not be a partisan issue, was the other thing that I said. The Facebook algorithm, the Twitter algorithm should not be a partisan issue, because I don't care who you are. I don't care what end of the political spectrum you are on. You have been affected by this. If you're a parent and you have a teenage daughter, you have been affected by this. If you are left-wing and you have a crazy right-wing uncle that thinks life is all a hoax, you have been affected by this. If you are right-wing or centrist and you have seen your kid go to the profound lengths where Hamilton now should be canceled, you have been affected by this. This is affecting all of us, everybody. So we need to not make this a partisan issue, which is what I went on and told, and I told Catherine McKenna. I mean, she ain't gonna read it, but that's the vibe.
I think you mentioned something interesting there, which is the notion that the algorithm should be turned off, and that then the consumer should have the choice to turn it back on
with a disclaimer.
That would be much more like the process of purchasing narcotics.
Yes.
Right? It's like if you call a Coke dealer, you're calling a Coke dealer because you want some Coke.
Yes.
And you assume that what's in that bag
is going to fuck me up, but it's free country,
it's
baby.
It's cocaine, and I chose to buy it.
Yes, it's like
and
cigarettes.
Really, that is but that is the same, neurologically speaking, your experience of being a consumer of social media is the same as a person doing drugs.
Yeah.
But there's no advertisement up front saying you're buying Coke.
And
so
exactly.
To me,
that's why I want to treat it
really
like cigarettes. Yeah, and that's why I want to treat it like cigarettes, because you know what's up when you buy cigarettes. You know what's up.
There's a big warning sign.
And here's another interesting thing. There's this company called Humane. It's by two chief Apple designers who left, and they're starting this new company. No one knows what the fuck they're making. They finally came out with a video. It seemed redonkulous. You can just look it up. But basically what they're trying to do is they're trying to solve for the problem that we have become addicted to our devices, and they want to create something that you could just glance and then look up into the world and connect. This is doomed to fail. And I'll tell you why. Because to what we're saying, this thing is crack, man. It's crack.
That's why I never bought one.
Yeah,
That's why I never bought one.
So this idea that we could technologically solve for it, like turn technology to something that turn cocaine to something that isn't cocaine, it's not going to happen. People go to this because it is endlessly fucking amazing, because it's constantly at every second when I open it up, I could be stimulated, right? But what we're saying is just tell people that, listen, I get it. Cocaine, I've never done it, but it seems like it's a trip, but it's cocaine. It's cocaine.
Right. That's it.
That's it.
People should know what they're buying.
By the way, we should do that to sugar too, my friend. We should do that to sugar too.
Should do it to the things that hurt us, right?
Yeah.
And then you go in with your eyes open, and you have
Free
the
country.
choice to do these things.
Free country.
But I don't know why social media is left out of that necessity. We regulate all kinds of things in our society, and there are. This is not. It is not free speech, because, as you say, the algorithm is not free speech.
It is
curated free speech. It is prescribed free speech. And so are 167% more people in Canada right wing than left wing?
No,
of course they aren't. But those left wing people on Twitter who are getting upset every day about what Jordan Peterson says are in play. As my friend Chris Abraham said to me, really hit me hard. When you get upset about that stuff, when you look at that stuff, you are now in play. Mm-hmm. You are exactly where these companies want you to be.
I was about to say,
you are in a state of discomfort.
Yeah.
Go outside.
Yeah. I was about to say, to answer your question, like your initial question of like, what do you do? Just don't look at it. Just turn it off. Just don't look at it.
But when you have the thing in your hand and you're lined up at the grocery store and your brain has become addicted to it, it's easier said than done. And I really do think that, if you want to make money in this world and you're a creative person, honestly, creative people should be thinking hard and deep about de-addicting people from their social media device, from their social media and from their handheld devices, because what they're getting from those things is what we provide, what we should be providing them, namely culture, namely the world of imagination, namely a reflection of the world that fascinates and seduces them. And when we are ceding the field to social media and to Netflix and to these things that we can get through the computer, we're kind of giving up on our jobs.
Well, what's crazy is that a lot of people would say, the content that you make it short, make it flashy, make it this. But what has happened since the pandemic has subsided and, things have become better? Sorry to tell you, things have become a lot better in respect to this virus. I have to say it. We need to celebrate. But one of the things that has happened...
Okay, yes.
Yeah.
I want to talk about that.
One of the things that has happened is that YouTube consumption for certain videos has gone down exponentially. But the stuff that is doing better than ever are videos that are 20, 30, 40, 50 minutes long. People will and want...
What do you think that reflects?
I think it reflects a mistake that content creators made, that human beings are just looking for like quick kind of dopamine hits, but the things that are everlasting and last forever, quality always wins. Quality always wins is something to remember. And it's even expressing itself in like what's happening to Netflix, right? Netflix for the longest time was like, we're just going to put shit up. We're going to see what the algorithm does. It's bullshit, but the algorithm works. But now their lunch is being eaten because what they didn't realize was that they were, just like probably Tesla is now, they were without any competition. They were literally the only game in town when it came to streaming, right? So they thought they had it going on. But now that there's competition, it's difficult for them. So now what they're realizing is that, shit, our lunch is being eaten by HBO, by Apple. Apple's coming in and eating their lunch. Paramount is eating their lunch. Warner is eating their lunch. They're making quality over quantity. So it's important for us to recognize that as artists.
This is a little esoteric, but it's something that I have. I guess this podcast is partially about what's on our mind, and what's been on my mind a lot lately as an artist, whether it's writing songs or whatever I'm trying to make, is that I think maybe it's important for us as artists these days to be moving past meaning. That meaning is everywhere and context is nowhere, and that providing a context is almost more important than providing a meaning. In other words, making something very, very beautiful right now, and that doesn't mean it has to be happy. It could be something very, very sad and beautiful, or something very true and stark and beautiful, but most of all beautiful. That as artists, we have become very entwined with our sense of citizenry. You and I, this podcast is about how arts and culture intersect with politics and how important we think it is for creative minds to be involved in the political process and be political. But as artists, I think that can trap us. And I think that maybe our audience seeks something else from us at the moment. It seeks a kind of sensuality and a kind of escape, not in the sense that like, here, look at this bright, shiny object, we've written a bedroom farce, but more like, look how beautiful this fucking life is. Even under these dreadful circumstances, even with war and famine and disease and pestilence and climate change and inequality, look how beautiful we are.
The more beautiful you think something is, the more beautiful you want to make it. I think it's important. Yeah, it really is.
Do. And like for 2 years, people have lacked our input. They've lacked our glamour. They've lacked our seeking of beauty. They've lacked our skill, the way we use our bodies and our voices to make art. And they want to see us do that.
Human beings want that. Human beings want that. Torque, I read this article that I think it was written in 2006 in GQ magazine, and it was a mass shooter. He was stopped before he was about to do it, and he went to jail, and they had an interview with him, and this was years after, and they asked him, he said, now when I look back at that moment, if somebody just would have stopped me and told me that I was loved and I was accepted and that I'm okay and that I'm beautiful, that's all I wanted. I'm not saying that's the case for everybody. Some people are fucking evil, okay? Yeah. Don't at me.
Yeah.
Some people are evil. But I'm saying most people are frightened.
Benefit greatly
and when you
from
to that
beauty.
article, when you perpetuate that fear, that constant fear, like human beings run for two reasons: when they're afraid and when they're in love. That's when they run. That's when they run. Yeah. When they're afraid, they run away. When they run
something or
exactly.
away something. Yeah.
So we need to kind of like predicate a society on the former, not the latter. And just to kind of big up our friend Chris Abraham, because I'm not going to say this without giving credit to this individual. I had the just the real luck of, being at him and Lisa's house, and them, my God, those two can cook. But we were getting into a conversation, and he mentioned something about like Shakespeare. And he says, regardless of how long Shakespeare has been around, and yes, of course, there's much dated about his plays. Who knows who wrote them? I think Shakespeare wrote them. But what he said, he goes like, the major thesis is that ultimately love is the answer and love always wins. And he brings an example of Romeo and Juliet. He's like, you watch Romeo and Juliet. They're surrounded by all this hate. They embark on this love. They kill themselves. Spoiler alert. But after they die, what do you choose? What do you want to do? You want to fall in love because inherently that is correct. That is the why.
It's worth drinking poison for.
Yes, it is worth drinking poison for. And that is the why of that is the true why. And so right now, what's going on in this world is that it actually, we could talk about policy, climate change, housing, this and that. But really what's going on is this is real Star Wars stuff. Is that there is a battle between the Jedi and the Empire. There is a battle between hope and love and despair and hate. That's what this is. And the thing is, like, when the people who are conscious of it, like, I get it, the Polyev, the Trump, the DeSantis, they know, the Hungarian president, they know what's up. But what upsets me the most is when I see our crew, our folk
not get it,
like aiding and abetting, and that article is aiding and abetting the perpetuation of fear when we should be pushing hope and nothing but hope. We have to, right? So I've been thinking about tribalism a lot. Tribalism sucks, but I'll tell you one tribalism that is good is when you call out your own tribe. I think it is necessary for us now to express our tribalism in that way and be like, hey, why are you yelling or why are you critiquing that person whom you're closest with or whom is your ally? Well, because I have to.
Because we want to win. I want to win. This is it's existential. Yeah. It is absolutely crucial that the Pierre Poilievres and the Donald Trumps be defeated, and that this encroaching fascism, this kind of it has nothing to do with conservatism. As much as I dislike conservatism, I'm not gonna hang it on conservatives because they're not in the conversation right now. This is fascism. This is and our response, peeps, cannot be neo-Puritanism.
No.
That is not our fucking response. No. Like, that is just another form of absolutism. People don't seek it from their political leaders. It's not how we reach consensus in society. You can have a radical left-wing agenda and still acknowledge the humanity and truth of someone else's argument. And if you cannot do that, you are of no use to our revolution. You really aren't. And so all this thing about getting caught, like when you look at Twitter and you get angry, that is on purpose, people. It's on purpose. It's being done to you on purpose. It doesn't reflect actually the way your community thinks, the possibilities for change out in your community, the possibilities for consensus, even with those you disagree with about certain things. For example, the Honda Festival of Lights is about to happen after 2 years of bliss. Thank you, coronavirus, for canceling the fireworks for 2 weeks. 2 years. I really appreciate that. As a West End resident of Vancouver, I'd like to thank the coronavirus for giving us 2 years of the fucking fireworks are back. We can't come up with anything else other than dumping 40,000 tons of fireworks into English Bay and scaring all the dogs and keeping everybody up all night and frightening the children and having 100,000 people come and dump their garbage on the goddamn lawn. We can't have a symphony. We can't have a dance concert. The only thing we can do is set off fireworks. But, there's lots of people in the West End who feel the way I do, and I bet a lot of them are going to vote for Pierre Poilievre.
Yeah.
So let's start with the fireworks.
Yeah.
Let's talk to each other. Let's complain together about the fireworks and about how they fuck up our neighborhood and how annoying it is. And then maybe talk about each other's family. And then maybe get a coffee.
Yeah.
And then we can get to Pierre Poilievre when there's trust built, when there's a friendship, when there's some sense of humanity between each
Mm-hmm.
other, instead of just like, you think this, I think that, go fuck yourself.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
conversation over,
Yeah.
change
And
over, revolution
yeah, and
over. And
also
we
we
can't
can't
afford
afford
to
it.
do that. We just can't
No.
afford to
And
do it.
and something else I was thinking about is that, like, democracy to me, like a marriage is a lifelong conversation. It's a
Right.
forever conversation.
Right. Yeah. And they're not always
And they're
easy.
not
Let me
easy.
tell you.
But all great
Yeah,
things in
they're
this
not
world are
always
not
easy.
easy. Children is not easy. Making art is
Yeah.
not easy. Democracy is one of those things. Like, but it has to be a forever conversation. And if you feel like
Yeah.
now we're in
And
a
if you
place where it's
lose
like
the
we can't
sense
even
of why
talk.
it's worth it.
We can't even talk.
Well, because if you lose the sense of why it's worth
Yeah.
it, that's why I ultimately end of a long conversation. But that's why this particular article, which is going to stay up online for so long, annoys me, is because when you start with no reason to fight,
Mm-hmm.
when you start with give up,
Mm-hmm.
well, you give
You
up,
give up.
and we can't give up.
Yeah.
Listen, I want to hear you bitch and moan about this review,
Yeah, man.
because you know what I really miss
What?
about the theater most?
Yeah.
I miss a lot of things about the
Critics?
theater. So many things. Well, no, I don't miss
Yeah.
don't miss critics. I still have them,
Yeah.
so that's okay.
Yeah.
I don't. I still get ranked like a quarter horse. Respect to the Globe and Mail, by the way, once again for getting rid of their star
Yeah.
system in
Yeah.
reviews. Much
Yeah.
respect.
Yeah. Forces you to
Good
read
for
it.
you guys.
Forces you to read it.
Good for you
Yeah.
guys. I'm sure nobody's reading them anymore, but that's okay. Good for you anyway. The people who are reading them are intelligent people who want to think about the play and not just be told what to think. Anyway, the thing I miss most about the theater is going to the bar and hearing actors bitch about critics.
Yeah.
That's what
Yeah.
I really, really miss, is angry actors yelling about critics. So here we go. Ali Moment,
Well, this
recreate that feeling for me.
This review doesn't have any stars, but like the headline doesn't, it usurps.
The headline,
Yeah,
let me
yeah.
intro you here. The headline is from the Daily Beast. I don't read the Daily Beast very much because I think Tina Brown is problematic. But the headline is, "The Kite Runner on Broadway is homophobic trash." That is the bait that Ali Moment fell for.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and that seems a little incendiary. Do you want to talk a little bit about why you thought this review was upsetting?
Okay, because this review.
Kite Runner is a book about Afghanistan.
Yeah, book about
right?
Afghanistan.
It's a
very
Khalid
famous
Hosseini
novel. Very famous novel. It
a
turned
very
into
famous
a
movie as well.
And the play.
Yep.
I did the play. I did the Canadian premiere of this play in 2013.
Oh,
I
cool,
played
okay.
the character in which this guy is shitting on, because, spoiler alert, if you have not read this book, the antagonist is this psychopath, this psychotic, sociopathic, I don't know. I think I have to give it away, but the inciting incident of this play is that the protagonist, when he's a child, witnesses a rape of his best friend, but because his best friend is a Hazara, which is like a marginalized ethnic community in Afghanistan, he doesn't do anything about it, and he lives with that guilt his entire life, right? So this review, basically, its thesis is that showing this character of Osef as this terrible psychotic person, that he rapes this child, and that later he comes back as a Taliban warlord who has little boys dancing for him, is homophobic. And why do I think that is bullshit? Here's what I want to say firstly. Number one, you have on stage 20 to 24 actors of Middle Eastern, North African descent on fucking Broadway. Number one. Number two, can you, and this is something that I want all of us to instill, can we please have a little faith in people? Do you honestly think people come and watch this play, watch that sociopathic, psychotic person, and think that that person's illness is his homosexuality and not his psychosis? Are you that stupid that you're projecting your stupidity on us? I think that is what's going on here. I think there is a projection of idiocy right now. That's it. Like, I'm just like, what the fuck? And I will also tell you this, right? Like, it's like, when people do a movie about the Iranian regime and the Iranian regime sucks, and it's like, why would you only show that the Iranian regime sucks? Well, the Iranian regime sucks, okay? But I also recognize that the Iranian people and culture is beautiful. I could hold many things in my head at once. But the truth is, this stuff fucking happens there, man. And just Google Dancing Boys of Afghanistan. It is true. This is true.
Yeah, I mean...
And when you do this, I just want to finish, right? And then you could go on. But when you do this, this is no different than when DeSantis says that when kids go and watch drag story time, that it's gonna it's the same bullshit. It is the absolute lack of faith in people, that human beings are capable of understanding complex fucking ideas. My God. Of course, the species that creates poetry, beauty, art, love, marriage, children is capable of thinking far more complex than you, man. I'm just tired of it.
I'm wondering if this movement towards art having to reflect the world that you want to see instead of aspects of the world that actually exist. In other words, this insistence of reviewers such as this that, homosexuals never be portrayed as negative characters in a story because it encourages hatred against them. I wonder if this movement is in some way linked to stan culture. In other words, as celebrity has grown, as celebrity use of the internet and as celebrities have their currency has grown completely attached to social media and to a presenting of a kind of positive surface to their life. The consumers of art, especially younger consumers of art, have started to equate the art these people make with their quality as people in a way that hasn't happened before in our history. That we are so aware of who the people making popular culture are, that we need them to be perfect and we need them to express our perfect world. We can't have their work express any kind of darkness or any kind of subversion of their persona. That we need art to be good now, not good small g, but good capital G. That we need it to reflect goodness. Is just to me like a further amplification of stan culture, but also an amplification of how absolutely everything in the world of the algorithm is politicized. That we cannot see any story, no matter how personal, as a personal story. That every personal story has a public kind of inference, a public consequence, a public reputation, a public life. I don't know how you make art under those circumstances. I don't know how you write 90% of the work that's been written over the last 100 years or paint 90% of the pictures. This is what I'm talking about when I say neo-Puritanism. We are approaching critical mass with this stuff, and it's time to start realizing art is not your mother. Art is not your mother. Art is not for the good of the people. It's not propaganda.
And the other thing is no one's people aren't actually I don't even know if this is successful. I don't even know if the Daily Beast does well. I actually don't think so. And the truth is, I bet you 99% of people who saw the play read this article. When you read the comments of people who actually saw the show, they were like, "What the fuck are you talking about? Like, you sound insane."
Well, and I'd like to go to another point you made at the beginning of your I don't call it a rant, but the beginning of what you were saying.
It's a mild conversation. I know.
Which is which is that there are 20 actors of color, 20 people of African and Middle Eastern descent specifically, because there's lots of actors of color on Broadway, but not African American actors. These are actors from the Middle East, from Africa, on stage on a Broadway show. If you're a theater critic and you go see a show on Broadway with 20 African and Middle Eastern actors, you might want to
Yeah.
lead with that. You know what I mean? That might be the big story that you're missing, which is that we have reached a stage where we can have that happen, where there can be a best-selling book by a person of color that is adapted into a film and then is adapted into a Broadway show, and that all these actors of color are working and getting paid and living their dream. How about starting with that? Instead of calling it homophobic trash because it doesn't reflect your worldview.
Yeah, and we're just such
I'm annoyed.
We're just such hypocrites as well, you know, because I didn't want to bring this up, but like the Lizzo spaz thing, for instance, right? Like, okay, God bless Lizzo. She said, fine, you know, like, I understand. I'm going to take this word out. I'll change the lyric. But like, guys, she's literally saying the B word over and over and over and over and over again. For some reason, we are okay with that word, which I can imagine many, many abusive husbands have yelled while they were hitting their wives.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know.
Mm-hmm. No, talk to a 75-year-old black person about their opinion on the constant use of the N-word in hip hop. You're going to find a lot of those people find it deeply offensive. So, but I still think people should be allowed to say it. You know what I mean? Like, otherwise, what are we doing here?
No, context matters. I don't think people should be allowed. I think context matters.
I'm not going. I resent the fact that I'm afraid to sound like Joe Rogan by saying that free speech means the defense of speech which you find abhorrent, and that if we do not defend speech we find abhorrent, we cannot expect our speech to be defended. I mean, this is basics, kids. This is basic left-wing ideology. And the fact that we are having to remind people of it is worrying. Because we are ceding the free speech issue to a bunch of fascists
I will tell you,
who are using it as cynically as they possibly can to gain power. So
I think the issue, though, is that what ends up happening is that we have a very basic kind of conversation about speech in which it turns to the point where it's like all or nothing. We either say everything or we say nothing. But like, I think what we're trying to say in respect to the algorithm, it's not make it left wing, make it right wing, but it's like, let's find a kind of like mature, intelligent, rational place, which I think is that, like, of course, please do not be spouting the N-word left, right, and center, but it doesn't mean you don't read Huckleberry Finn. It doesn't mean that you can't do 12 Years a Slave. And it doesn't mean, and I will say this right now, that Shaw should have canceled Assassins because of its use. It's that kind of stuff that we're trying to like just be like, hey, guys.
But just to push back a little to our friend of the pod, Kevin Hanchard's point when he appeared on the show, also times do change and things do change. And if you are a white person using that word in a work of art, you better have a goddamn good reason. And
that's
you better
exactly
have
what I'm saying
to the black people you're making the art with about that. So, it's all about, it's not about not having the conversation, but it's about recognizing that at the end of the day, like, we cannot politicize personal art. We have to, like, not everything's Bertolt Brecht. In fact, very few things are Bertolt Brecht. Very few things are ideological at their heart. Art is made from the heart, and most of it is made about the personal lives of individuals, which then, of course, metastasizes out, turns into a metaphor for the lives of all of us, etc., etc. But I remember when I was in high school, a friend of mine saying, I didn't like Do the Right Thing. And I said, why didn't you like Do the Right Thing? And she said, because at the end, Mookie put the garbage can, he smashed the garbage can through the window, and I thought that was the wrong thing to do, and it just made black people look bad. And I remember at the time thinking, okay, that's an interest. I hadn't thought about that, because it hadn't occurred to me when watching Do the Right Thing that Mookie putting the trash can through the window, that the point of that was that black people were bad. To me, the point was Mookie had had enough. It was 110 degrees outside. He was a person who had lived inside this casual racist society all of his life, where he was kind of friends with these Italian guys, but they were also super denigrating to him and treated him like shit. And he had just gotten used to it. Mookie had just started living inside that he had become inured to the small ways in which he was
Mm-hmm.
being treated like a second
Mm-hmm.
class citizen by his
Mm-hmm.
so-called friends. And so this chill guy who never really let anything bother him, who stayed cool in the heat, finally lost it and started a riot. To me, that was about Mookie. That was about all of
Mm-hmm.
us as Mookie. That all of us driven to a certain point might do something we regret, or might do something that we think, looking back, was a bad thing to do, that we have to say sorry for, that caused negative consequences. The lesson is not on
Mm-hmm.
the surface. The lesson is in how that story lives in
Mm-hmm.
my heart. And to me, that is, it's just very sad if we lose that ability to denote between those two
Yeah.
things, between what our art is and what our
100%.
politics is. And so a headline like this, to me, is refusing to accept the difference between art and politics
And there's
and
no
lumping
thinking.
them
There's
in
no
together.
thinking.
And
It's a
that's not,
statement. It's like it's there's just no thought. That's all. There's no thought.
yeah, silliness.
Let's talk about
Silliness.
January 6th and then let's get
Listen,
out of here because I
yeah,
just want to say that my
it's good
yes,
theater.
and
I'll say
initially
that. I mean,
yeah.
you want to see non-political theater about an individual?
Yeah,
Watch the January
right.
6th hearings, because they are
Yeah.
all about. It's like watching
Yeah.
King Lear, basically,
Yeah,
but he's
yeah.
not in it. He
Yeah.
doesn't get any lines, but you can invent him.
But what's
'cause you've
crazy is
already
for the
seen
longest
him.
time I was like, guys, like, can you wrap this up? Like, what's your point and what's going on here? And then I had this like dawning realization that like, oh my God, I'm basically listening to the new season of Serial. And just like every single true crime podcast, with the exception, or true crime documentary, with the exception of the Jinx, I'm not going to get to a conclusion in which all of a sudden there's going to be incrimination at the end. I'm just not going to get it. Just like Making a Murderer, like I'm in, but oh, okay, it's a murky thing.
Well,
and it made me
think
realize
that
that,
there's-
you know what? This is it. I think Liz Cheney is a genius. That what she's doing is she's like reverse Adnan Syeding this thing. That basically it's like Trump is like the opposite of Adnan, and he is like, these are all the ways he is guilty. We might not come to a conclusion. There will probably likely not be an indictment, like there wasn't, a reversal with Adnan Syed, an exoneration. We're not going to get that. You're going to think we're going to get it. You're going to think we're going to get Trump in handcuffs. You're going to think there's going to be a perp walk. There isn't. But that's not the point. The point is we're just going to get you to episode 14 of Serial, and then you're going to like just be like, wow, Trump was a motherfucker. And that's it. So good on them. Liz Cheney.
Well,
I feel
think,
you, Liz.
Oh my God! Please don't like Liz Cheney.
I like her for the
She
moment.
is one of
I like
the
her
worst
for the
people
moment.
in
I like her for what she's
entire
doing.
World. The friend of the
yeah.
enemy of my enemy is my friend. Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah.
Well, okay, that's a tough bedfellow. Because this is I mean, it's so bizarre that we have to. We should be fighting Liz Cheney.
I'll fight her
tooth and
tomorrow.
nail
I'll fight
every
her later.
day,
Right now,
because
she's my ally.
She's a bad person who
I fight her
wants
later.
bad things for the world. She's thrilled that Roe v. Wade's been overturned, by the way.
So is
but yeah,
50.
you're right.
So
She is
50% of America. So
yeah,
Yeah,
true that. She is very brilliantly conducting this. I agree, and I think the reason goes to what you're saying. I have a $100 bet with a buddy of mine that Donald Trump will ever face legal consequences for any of the things he's done. I don't think he will. And I'm not worried about losing $100. And I think that they are aware on this committee that this is it, that this is the last hurrah, that this is the consequence for him, is a daily list of humiliations in the newspaper. But that they're not going to get him. Because I think the whys of that are complex. They're legal, but they're also cultural. I do believe that the Democratic Party just doesn't have the stomach for the fight, and fears that there will be armed conflict in the street if they attempt to indict Donald Trump on any serious charges. And I think they have a legitimate reason to think that. But you know what? That's not reason enough not to indict this man. Pinochet in Chile, now I'm not saying that Donald Trump did as much harm to his people as Pinochet, but believe me, he would if he could.
Yeah,
I think
true.
we all agree that this man would do anything he wanted to in a second term. That like there should be some courage here, but I don't think there's going to be. So short of that, I guess daily humiliation for as long as the serialization of his crimes is the best we can do. And look, It's summer, so you don't even
Yeah.
have to think about it. Just stop reading the newspaper. We'll read the paper so you don't have to. I promise. I'll start reading the paper again. That's the Soft Revolution podcast this week. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you to Crow's Theater, who is, I'm sure, in the heat, a cool place to go and have a drink and probably see some awesome music in the lobby and go see a beautiful show. Always doing amazing shit over at Crow's Theater. Please go check out what they're doing at crowstheater.com. Thank you to our friend Aaron Reynolds over at Effin' Birds. Aaron is a maven. Just please go and check out what all this amazing stuff this guy does. He must work 20
I was about to say
hours
that.
a day.
When does he sleep?
He has, he's just pumping out hilarious, great sort of, you know what he is? He's a trickster. He spends his life meddling in pop culture and meddling in people's assumptions by using birds and swear words. And it's incredibly brilliant. And he's a great artist. And you should go check out what he does. Thank you for your undying support. Go check out effinbirds.com. That's it for us. Ali, what's your art pick?
Before I get to my art pick, I do want to say, I know we told people not to like read the news and shit, but I came across this like Plato quote today, and I was like, uh-oh, and it's that the price good men pay for indifference to public affairs is to be ruled by evil men. So, yeah, well, there's that.
Yeah,
so,
there
I don't
you go.
know. Anyways.
Sorry.
But my art pick is Sinead Harnett. She is they all come from England, man, those vocalists. She is an incredible kind of like,
You're always coming up with new stuff. I always think I'm on the cutting edge of this stuff, but you've always got new stuff for me, Ali.
Sinead
Harnett.
Yeah, she's
new first album?
First real album, yeah. The vibe now is like, I'm going to create EPs, a few EPs. And then what's amazing is there's artists that I follow that to me, I'm like, oh, this is like their fourth album. And then Pitchfork will review it and be like their debut album. I'm like,
Yeah, that's how the algorithm. That's the algorithm too, buddy. You got to keep pumping out content.
So let me ask you a question: what's an EP?
Content. An EP is just about 3
What
or 4
does EP
songs.
stand for? Is it an acronym for something?
3 of extended play. It used to be that you could buy what was called an EP on vinyl, so that would be 2 songs on the front half, 2 songs on the back, and it wasn't like a single.
So if you took your new album, which by the way is fucking amazing,
somewhere between an LP,
which is amazing, this is like your best album.
Thank you.
FYI.
Thank you.
If I was to split your album in 2, it'd be 2 EPs.
Yeah.
So
That's
you could
correct.
basically,
and we would have had twice as much algorithmic activity.
So do you ever go back and say maybe like we should have just like 4 songs going boom boom boom, 4 songs boom boom boom.
Yes, every day we forensically look back on the mistakes we've made. And
here's what else
again.
is hilarious.
Here's
what else is hilarious, because Sinead Harnett too, like her new album, Ready Is Always Too Late, 2022 release. It's an amalgamation of 2 EPs.
All the EPs, yeah.
What the fuck is going on?
What's interesting about what's interesting is that this is very exactly the way the music business operated in the 50s and 60s. We have actually returned to the system as it stood in the 50s and 60s, which was highly exploitative of the artist. The artist had power in the 70s and 80s, and it has been wrestled back. Congratulations, music industry. So that now people have to prove themselves with a bunch of singles before they're allowed to put an album out. In the 70s, you were signed to a 5-album deal, a 6-album deal. Elton John signed like a 6-album deal when he was 21 years old. He didn't have a hit until his 3rd album. They let him make albums because they believed in him as an artist, and they weren't just in it for the immediate buck. But such is the nature of things that we are now in a place where we are back the way Elvis Presley used to make records of the Beatles. The Beatles' first record was just an amalgamation of the singles they put out, Anyway, interesting. Sinead Harnett. We're going to play some as we go. Sinead Harnett. Check it out. Here's what I'm going to tell people. One of the things I love most about summer is if you go to a used bookstore, everybody reads these summer blockbusters with the print that comes out, the embossed print on the cover, and they're fun and everything. But we're in a recession. I think we already are.
We're artists, baby, all day.
We're definitely
every day.
We're definitely in inflation. Things are expensive. New books are expensive. Here's my recommendation: that you go to a used bookstore. Every used bookstore will have at least a few 60s, 70s Penguin paperbacks. Most of them will be suspense books or mystery books. But anything you can find with an orange cover on it that is old and used will probably be a pretty good book. Penguin Books back in the 50s, 60s, and 70s was an extraordinary book company. It really didn't put out any bad writing. Now, some of the books might have been esoteric, or they might have been a little trashy or weird, or you might not have liked them. But everybody who
Yeah.
signed to that imprint in the 60s and 70s
Wow.
could write. And a lot of them are delightfully fun. A lot of them are reprints of sort of Iris Murdoch or other very well-known British authors of the 60s and 70s. You'll find some incredible novels in there, and they're short. People write these like 800-page books now. I don't know where that happened. I think it was David Foster Wallace's fault. But everybody's writing these giant books. You need 250 pages, guys. How much time do you have? You know what I mean? Go get a Penguin at a used bookstore. Support a local independent used bookstore. Make sure they're making their cash. Spend a little less money on a book. Buy a nice used book and explore something different. Penguin Books from the 60s and 70s. Orange cover.
Love it.
Can't go wrong. That's the Soft Revolution podcast. Thank you so much for listening. We will see you again soon. We can't say exactly when because we're hustling, and we hope you are too. But by that I mean I hope you're hustling out to the beach
Yeah.
and lying
Yeah.
on it.